I am on Broward Boulevard at the Florida East Coast Railroad tracks, which is the tracks that the Brightline train is going to run on. The Brightline train station is behind me, and you notice there's no train. I haven't seen a train all week. Now this week they said they were going to run 10 mock trains a day from West Palm to Fort Lauderdale in order to sort of shake out the service. But I haven't seen one single train, so I suspected that they weren't running any trains. I set up a time-lapse camera north of the city in order to catch any train traffic, and just to see. Maybe they're running them at night, maybe I'm just missing them. But that camera was set up for 24 hours on Friday, this last Friday, and no Brightline trains at all. Anyway, just to give you an update on what happened this last week. On Friday, the leg of the railroad from Orlando to West Palm Beach was approved by some sort of federal board. And then there was a big push to get the bond issue to pay for that. And there was going to be an emergency meeting on Monday, tomorrow, because there's currently working its way through Congress is a tax reform bill, and different forms of that bill have made changes to the tax exempt status of bond issues. And there was a fear that if that tax bill passed, that the bonds wouldn't be taxed, the interest on the bonds for this railroad wouldn't be tax deductible, but any existing bonds would be grandfathered. So they were going to do a rush job and get that bond issue through before the tax bill passes so that it would be grandfathered. As it turns out, apparently the tax bill is not detrimental for the bond issue, so they canceled the emergency meeting on Monday. And I think the federal approval for to build the track may have been rushed a little bit also for the same reason. Now the opponents of this railroad, we're not happy about rushing the bond issue through, of course, because I think that some of the opponents of the railroad are opposed to it simply because of the bond issue. So there were supposed to be 10 trains a day from West Palm to Fort Lauderdale, to the Fort Lauderdale station that's behind me. But I haven't seen any trains. So maybe the story about running 10 trains a day, maybe it was next week that they're going to do it. So I have something else I want to show you, and maybe I'll tell you a story on the way. So hang on a second, I'm going to get in the car and we're going to go for a drive and I'll show you something. Okay, so we're at the Fort Lauderdale Brightline station in a car that has antlers on it. So that means I have to wear my festive hat. If you're going to have antlers and a red nose on your car, you have to wear a Santa hat. So this is the Fort Lauderdale Brightline train station. I was going to drive around it, but they've got cones across, so you can't drive around back where the parking garage is. So I guess I'll just do a little bit of a U-turn. It is Sunday, December 17th. So there's not weekday traffic on the road. They've been building stuff like crazy in Fort Lauderdale, condos and apartment buildings. And so the roads can be quite gridlocked at rush hour. Anyway, I was going to tell you a story about there goes the signals again. I was going to tell you a story about something that happened to me in London that should be sort of instructive. Because when they said they're going to run 10 trains a day next week, I thought that was this last week, but apparently either they didn't run the trains or they didn't really mean that week. But anyway, I flew into Gatwick Airport one time years ago. It's actually the first time I ever went to London, England. I flew into Gatwick Airport and I stayed overnight in a hotel. I flew in really late and I stayed overnight in a hotel that was close to the airport. And then I took a train into London. But when I bought the ticket for the train, there was a little bit of a language barrier, and I wasn't really expecting a language barrier in England. I thought they spoke English in England, but I discovered that English isn't always English. Anyway, I was in the Gatwick area, and I want to take a train into London, and I go to buy my ticket, and there is an express train, and there's a local train, and the express train is quite a bit more expensive. I think it's more than double. Maybe it was, I don't know, it seems to me it was about maybe $35 or $40 or something like that in US money. So I bought the express train because I didn't have a lot of time in London. It goes right straight downtown. And the guy said, I said, you know, where do I go? And the guy said, it's the next train on track 2. I don't remember if it was really 2. It's the next train on track 2. So I go get a coffee or go to the bathroom or whatever, and then I go down to the track, and lo and behold, there's a train on track 2. So I get on the train. Now, trains in many places all over the world, they don't collect your ticket or check your ticket as you're getting on the train. They let anybody on any train, and then after the train leaves the station and it's too late to get on the right train if you're on the wrong train, that's when they look at your ticket. Now, if you go to a football game, they take your ticket on the way into the football game, so you can't go to the wrong football game. You can't go to the wrong movie in a movie theater. If you go to a theater, a proper theater, Broadway show kind of thing, they actually take you to your seat and say, here, sit in this seat right here. Anyway, it turns out that when they said the next train going to London, they didn't mean the next train that leaves the tracks. They meant the next train after the train that's there. Well, so now I'm on the train and I have the wrong ticket, and it's creating a little consternation. And as we just left the station, and we're maybe 2 or 3 minutes down the track, and we're bumping down the track on the local train, and another train goes shoom, like a bullet right past us, and the guy collecting the ticket says, that's the train you want right there. I thought, okay, that's a lot of good that does me now. Anyway, so when they said the next train, they meant the train, not the next train to leave the station. They meant the next train after the train that's there. So maybe when they said next week, they really meant the week after next week or something. I don't know, when they said they were going to run 10 trains a day. Anyway, this is I-95. I'm going west on Broward Boulevard, and this is I-95 that we're coming up to here. I-95 goes from Miami to all the way to Maine, and it runs parallel to the tracks, or I should say the tracks in Florida that we just came from run parallel to this all the way to Jacksonville or so. So what I want to show you down here is another train station. It seems like people have the idea that the Brightline train is the only Florida train, and it's not true. There's actually 2 other trains that you can take that run parallel to the Brightline that go from Miami through West Palm Beach, parallel on parallel tracks. And this station that I'm driving into down here is the AMTRAK station and Tri-Rail station for Fort Lauderdale. The AMTRAK station, you can get on the train here, the AMTRAK train. You can go all the way to Maine on these tracks. So I sped the video up here to just to quickly get through looping around behind the train station and getting into the parking lot and finding a parking spot. Fort Lauderdale train station.
Next train to arrive in the station should be AMTRAK train number 92, the Northtown Silver Star. All passengers proceed to boarding location at this time. If you're a sleeper car combination, we'll board just right outside the station by the door. Coach combination will board right by the overpass. There's a green safety cone in the road. We're forwarding this call. This is for coach passengers as well. Thank you for traveling AMTRAK.
Okay, so it is a northbound train, but it's on the tracks which should be the southbound tracks. There we go. So this train has sleeper cars. There's one coming right there. That's a sleeper car. So there we go. Off to Savannah, Georgia. This train stops, I think there's about 18 or 20 stops between here and in Florida, between here and Savannah, Georgia, including Boynton Beach and Boca Raton, but also including West Palm, not far from where the Brightline station is going to be. So the Brightline train has currently 3 stations, one in Miami, one in Fort Lauderdale, and one in West Palm. This parallel train has stations at those places, but also has a whole bunch of stations in between. And all the trains tend to stop at all the stations. So that is going to be the advantage of the Brightline. On the one hand, the stations are more conveniently located. They're closer to downtown. And also because they don't make as many stops. Every train is basically an express train between the major cities in South Florida. Also, the train if you get on the train here to go to Orlando, the trains do go to Orlando, but it takes a while to get there. I think it's over 2 hours to get to Orlando by train here. Actually, I'm not sure how long it is. I'll have to check the schedule. But it takes a long time to get to Orlando by train from here, compared to what the Brightline is going to be. Now, in this part of Florida, this train actually has fewer grade crossings than the Florida East Coast Railway, the Brightline. Through Fort Lauderdale, this train does have grade crossings, including a couple that have seen some spectacular crashes. There's one where a train, I don't know whether it was AMTRAK or Tri-Rail, crashed into a gasoline truck and created a big explosion, and a few people died at a grade crossing. That was this track to the north at Cypress Creek Road, I think. So I'm going to take the elevator up top. The Tri-Rail train should be arriving here, so I'm going to take the elevator up to the bridge and see if I can film the Tri-Rail train entering the station from the bridge at the top. Just to wrap things up, I want to clarify that eventually the Tri-Rail trains will be able to use the Brightline stations in Miami and West Palm. So at that point, the Brightline would lose the convenience factor from those stations, but it should still be a lot faster because of all the stops that these other trains make in between. To recap progress on the overall project, the 10 trains a day that was supposed to be this week didn't happen. The emergency meeting for the bond issue tomorrow was canceled because it doesn't seem to be an emergency anymore based on the final form of the tax legislation. That's a $1.15 billion bond they're trying to issue, by the way. And the Orlando to West Palm link has supposedly been approved by the feds. But I'm skeptical because there's a lot of opposition, and I think that approval was just being rushed through in order to get the bond issue. So now that the pressure is off on the bond issue, I don't know what that federal approval really means. So, and then I'm going to leave you with some fun clips at the end of this. Thanks for watching. Enjoy. Now this week, they were supposed to be running 10 days. I'm going to start over. But there's been a lot of news this week, and I think I'm going to start over again. Oops. Probably I shouldn't run a red light.